Hey guys, welcome to our Tuesday Essentials and Optifast virtual group. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. So take a look over the tips at the beginning. My name is Jordan Harold. I'm one of the health behaviorists here at the clinic. And we will be getting started today in just a few seconds. Look over to make sure you have everything there. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to type them in the chat box, and we will go ahead and get started. Okay. All right, can everybody see me? Can you see me yet? Yes, okay, great. All right, welcome everybody. So what we're going to do is we are going to talk a little bit about self-esteem today. So thank you guys so much for joining. If you have questions, like I said, type them in the box. I'll get to them as soon as I see them. And this is going to be a pretty interactive group today. I'm going to have some questions for you. Please answer through the chat box if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable, that's okay. Please just sit back and listen and enjoy. So you can see there's a handout down at the bottom, the self-esteem handout, and you can click that. But we will go ahead and get started. Okay, so what is self-esteem? So I've got some things on here, but I want you to type in a little bit of what you think of, whether it's a certain word, a definition, or anything like that that you think of when you think about self-esteem. Can you guys do that for me? Positive. Okay, good. A couple more people are typing. Liking yourself, comfortable, confidence. These are great. These are really good. One definition is a realistic and appreciative opinion of oneself. And I love this because it talks about a realistic view and being able to be appreciative of the view that you have of yourself. And so you're going to be thinking, when you think about self-esteem, is you're going to be thinking about the strengths and the weaknesses that you have, because we all have those, right? So when we think about that, even though we have weaknesses, we still, when we think about having self-esteem, we're going to think about an overall good feeling of where we're at now, but also being humble, knowing and understanding, life is a journey. We all have a lot to learn. No matter what our strengths or our weaknesses are, we do all have a lot to learn, right? So we're going to go ahead and keep talking a little bit more about self-esteem. I want you to be thinking as we move through this about what your self-esteem is. Is it something you think about often? If it is, what kind of thoughts does it, evoke for you? Are they positive? Are they negative? And be thinking about kind of where it comes from. Okay. So let's talk a little bit specifically about low self-esteem and people that don't struggle with low self-esteem. So people with low self-esteem often are at higher risk for depression, anxiety, chronic pain, anger, and health problems, including obesity. So when we think about those and we think about the impact low self-esteem has, it's pretty big. Self-esteem is associated with feelings of happiness and the ability to live a fulfilling life. And it doesn't mean, like we said, it doesn't mean that everything's going right. What it does mean is that we have the ability to be realistic with where we are. So when you think about self-esteem, I want you, those of you that are comfortable, to type in, where does self-esteem come from? Where do we get that view or that realistic view of ourselves? Or even differently, it may not be 100% realistic. So where does internal, someone said internal. What else? We'll wait a little bit. Others, families, kids. Our mental conception. Yeah. So I'm hearing a couple our actions. Explain more for me a little bit on that. How you feel the world sees you. Yeah. So I'm hearing kind of a couple things. So one, some of you are saying internally, so what our own thoughts, what our own feelings are about ourselves. And then some of you are also saying it comes from other people, either how we think other people see us, which is also internal, right? Or it could actually come from what other people say to us. It could be a direct response to us. It could be direct words. It could be what we see people say about themselves, right? Anything else about where you think self-esteem comes from before we kind of move on a little bit? Okay. Thank you guys for participating. Looks like someone's typing, so we'll wait just a second longer. Your surroundings, yeah, the things around you. You're exactly right. So one of the things that we're going to talk about next is what are the building blocks for self-esteem? Unconditional worth, love, and growing, okay? And so when you think about these things, what I want you to think about is unconditional worth. Any ideas what that means? Any idea about what unconditional worth is? Every person has value. Yes, exactly right. So unconditional worth is that we all have the same basic inherent worth. Knowing we're worthy regardless of circumstances or of others, that's beautiful. Yes. So understanding that no matter what we're led to believe by our surroundings, like we talked about, the people in our lives, our internal voice, that we all have unconditional worth. And this is something that I think can be extremely hard for people to understand. And maybe not to understand logically, but to really put into practice and believe internally, and to have that internal voice that believes that you are worthy. So I think this is one of the places that people initially begin to struggle, and it's the number one foundation for building block for self-esteem. So what about love? When we think about love, it does not create self-worth. We're getting pretty deep here today. So when someone loves you, or the love that you have for yourself does not necessarily create self-worth. Because remember, we're already inherently worthy, right? And that's that unconditional worth. But what love does do is it can help enhance the unconditional worth that we have, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So what we're saying is you can maybe have not experienced love from someone else the way that it's intended, but can still be worthy. But we can love ourselves. We can experience unconditional love from someone else, and that can help with the worth, right? Okay, and then growing. This is the final building block for self-esteem. Basically, this is talking about a direction, a process. It's not it's not a means to an end. It's as we grow and develop our character, our personality, who we are, it helps us to learn and appreciate our abilities, those strengths that we talked about, but also to understand and have a realistic view of the areas that we need to work on. And as we do this and as we grow, it really truly helps us be able to have a better fulfillment and enjoyment in life. So these are the building blocks of self-esteem: unconditional worth, love, and growing. When you think about these, I want you to think, is there any of these where you feel exceptionally strong? We all could be in a different place. So are you somebody that truly, really knows and understands your unconditional worth? Or is that something that's hard for you? Unconditional worth and love. Yeah. And so this person really is thinking that growing is the area that may not be quite as strong as others. And that's okay. Because a lot of times I think in our society, we think about growing differently. We always think about a destination. We think about getting there. We think about finishing. But that's not always the case. Sometimes what we have is the journey for things, the process. And we're constantly learning, constantly growing. And that's kind of what that third building block is talking about. Okay. Self-esteem checkup. Okay, I'm going to give you guys several times. You can write it down. You can do it in your head. But basically, I want you to look at these 12 statements and give yourself a ranking of 0 to 10. So what I want you to do is I want you to rank 0 if you do not believe the statement at all. And I want you to rank 10 if you believe the statement to be completely true. Okay? So I'm going to give you guys some time to do that. You can write it down or tally it up to get a total. Be as honest as possible, too. So we'll give you maybe a minute or two. When someone's finished, if you'll just give me a done so I know we can kind of move on, that'd be good. Done. Okay. Thanks, guys. So when you look at this, if you are someone who has the best score possible that you can get on this assessment, it would be 120, right? I don't expect anybody to have 120, probably ever, and that's part of the process of growing. So look at the ones where you might have scored a 9 or a 10, okay? Did anybody get a 9 or a 10 on any of the questions? Most of them, yes. Number 6. Good, 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 good. So these are going to be the areas, and probably even an 8 as well, where, good, most everybody. Okay. So these are going to be the areas where you have strength and have high self-esteem. For those of you, and you don't have to comment unless you want to, but for those of you that maybe scored like 3 or below on any of these are the areas where you could possibly have struggles with your self-esteem. And it's totally possible that in one of these areas you get a 9 or a 10, and the very next one you may have a 0. We are all made up very, very differently, and our self-esteem and everything looks very, very differently, right? Were any of you surprised by any answers that you gave? No, yes. So a lot of people not surprised, some people surprised. Yeah. Okay. So now I want you to think about and share an example of a time where, it doesn't even have to be about weight management, right? It can be anything. A time where a struggle with self-esteem could have impacted one of your daily activities. Okay? So an example, maybe you didn't apply for a job that you really wanted to apply for. Maybe you didn't ask out somebody on a date. Anything like that. Maybe it's not going to an exercise class that you really wanted to try. There's some people typing, so we'll wait a second. Being talked down to by a customer or client, avoiding outings. Yeah, these are good examples of how it impacts us. So I want you now to think about the frequency of this impact, if this is an area that you struggle with. And I want you to rate yourself. How often do you feel your difficulties with self-esteem impact your daily activities? Okay, so if you feel like it always does, that's a 1, and then rank yourself to never. And if it's never, that's great. But I think that the majority of people are not going to fall in never. Yeah. Thank you guys for being open enough to share. That's great. So when you think about this is an important topic because often and sometimes is impacting you. You're thinking about, and it often too, maybe you weren't aware that this is what was impacting you. But when you think about it, you think about how many times that you may avoid a situation, like an example was, or not, those are opportunities for you that could potentially actually increase your self-esteem or get you to try something new or to help you with happiness and other opportunities. So the last two pieces of information should be in the handout that's included. And in that handout, print this off and in 3 months from now, redo it and pay attention to your scores. Did they change? Did they not change? What would you attribute to that? So use this as a constant kind of reassessment for where you're at and what you're doing with your self-esteem. Okay? Okay, so here's a lot of questions. So I don't want you to necessarily try and take them all in at one time, but we'll talk about them individually. So unhelpful thinking, we talked a lot about thoughts about ourselves, what other people think about us, and how that can impact our self-esteem. So we're going to spend the next chunk of time in the group talking about unhelpful thinking. So one, do you have an inner critic? Do you have that voice inside of your head that critiques everything that you do or everything you do in a certain area? Okay? My guess is most everybody does at some point in their life have this inner critic that can really get in the way. So what thoughts do you have that are defeating? You don't have to answer that, okay? We're going to get into some more examples, so we'll have those to go over. If you would like to go over one of yours, definitely feel free to type it in, okay? Number 3, excuse me. Are you aware of those thoughts? So some people may have an inner critic and have these self-defeating thoughts, but they may happen either so frequently or you're so used to them that you're not even aware that they're unhelpful or that they're coming from an inner critic. Some people believe them to be truth, okay? And we'll go into that a little bit more because that's a pretty deep concept as well. Okay, so again, we all have them at some point. How much do they impact you? So we talked about the self-esteem part and how much that impacts us, which the majority of the group felt like it was often or at least sometimes. So now when you think about and start to become aware of unhelpful thinking, how much does that impact you? Okay? Now, you won't be able to answer that if you have limited awareness on what that is, and it takes practice sometimes to identify some of those unhelpful thinking patterns, and we'll practice a little bit today. And then, what does self-esteem have to do with our thoughts? We've touched on this already. Tell me again, how do you think that self-esteem has to do anything with what we're thinking? Anybody have an answer for me? Creates negative thoughts. Yeah, you're right. So the low self-esteem, struggle with self-esteem can then create negative thoughts. You're exactly right. And then what do negative thoughts do then? So then you have the negative thoughts, affects day-to-day interactions with others. Yeah. Both negative thoughts and self-esteem, and it sets yourself up for failure. You're 100% right. When we have these negative thoughts that impact our self-esteem, or vice versa, it can set us up for failure because we're projecting and we're putting that out there. Yeah. Okay. So those are some questions when we think about unhelpful thinking. So now we're going to talk about what are some of the most common patterns. All or nothing thinking is a pattern that I see most often. And I think, and I know it said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I think every single person in the world at some point has had some kind of unhelpful thinking pattern. Okay? So can any of you think about another way to say or what an example of all or nothing thinking may be? Have any of you heard it before? Yes. Yeah, for sure. I'll never be able to do that. That's a perfect example. Yeah. I cheated on my diet. I might as well give up. That's a perfect example of all or nothing thinking. So as you guys are keep typing some examples, I'm going to be the best or not as all. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. So all or nothing thinking is exactly what it says. It is, I'm either going to do it all or I'm not going to do it. This is the thing that says, okay, so I ate off plan today at lunch. So I might as well blow it. I might as well eat off plan for supper. I might as well drink this, eat this, because I've already blown it for today. Okay? So that all or nothing thinking pattern. Okay? Or it may be, all right, so not weight related. Okay, maybe gym related. If I can't go to the gym and get 45 minutes of exercise in, or if I can't go to a certain class, I might as well not go to the gym. Okay? Those are some other examples or all or nothing thinking. Does anybody suffer from all or nothing thinking patterns? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, this is the most common one that I see. And I think that it's truthful. It can get in a really bad habit of having these happen, right? Okay, so overgeneralizations. Anybody have an example, or not an example, but an idea of what this means? How would you define overgeneralization? Don't see anybody typing, so we'll see. So overgeneralization, that is when, let's say, a couple people are going to go to a party or out to lunch or take a walk at work. Let's say take a walk, right? Okay, so everybody's going to take a walk at work, but nobody swung by your office to get you. An overgeneralization, an unhelpful thinking pattern that's like that is, I didn't get invited to that one walk. Nobody likes me. Okay? That's where you're taking one particular event, one particular thought. Everyone is slim except me. Ah, yes. That's another good example. Yeah. Or it could be even, I've lost weight once and didn't keep it off, so that means I'm never going to keep it off. Yeah. So these are overgeneralizations. You're taking one thing and applying them to a larger situation or to every situation or to every person. Okay. Someone says, I think some unhelpful thinking stems back to learned childhood behavior. Yeah, it does. It comes from multiple different places, I think. I think that what we know is our inner critic or this unhelpful thinking patterns, which often are hand in hand, right, come from what we've heard others say to us, what we've heard others say about themselves, right? How many of you have ever, if you have children, I think this is the best example. If you look down and you see your child say something and you go and you think, oh my gosh, that sounded just like me, right? But you never told them to say it, or you never told them to use that facial expression, or you never told them to whatever it is, but they said it. That's exactly what you're talking about there with that learned childhood behavior, because we're watching those around us, both when we're children and our children. We're watching and we're learning. We're learning what other people think about themselves. We're learning what our family or our teachers or our friends think about other people. And in that, it's directly related to how they think about us. Yeah, you're right. Okay, disqualifying the positive. The best example I have for this is if someone walks in and they're like, that's such a pretty dress. And you're like, oh, this old thing, right? Instead of just saying, thanks, I love it. Or, yeah, isn't it cute? So that's a way of disqualifying the positive. Or let's say you show up to group, right? And someone says something to you about your weight loss. And your statement then to disqualifying the positive, somebody says they're really good at that. $5 at Goodwill. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Yeah. And part of that, we disqualify the positive in everything. Somebody, you get an award and you're like, well, so-and-so really did that. Or I had a lot of help from this person. Or a provider says to you, you did such a great job logging your food or sticking to your behaviors or getting your workouts in. And disqualifying the positive could be, oh, this week it was easy because I didn't have blank, blank, blank to do. So I challenge you, there's lots of people typing, so we'll see what's coming up. But being able to say thanks. Thank you. Not easy to accept compliments. That's exactly the definition of disqualifying the positive. And a lot of that goes back to that unconditional worth, right? We need to feel that we're worthy of being able to accept that compliment. Okay? Disqualifying the positive, that's a big one. Okay, should statements. This is probably my favorite one to talk about because I think it has a lot of implications and sometimes flies under the radar. How many of you have ever said, I shouldn't eat that? Or I should go to the gym? Lots of people. Yes. Okay. So I want you to pretend that you never learned the word should. Okay? So completely take it out of your vocabulary. And it takes practice. I still use it. But when you hear the word should, I want it to be like a flashing light for you guys to be able to say, nope, I need to change what I'm thinking. I need to change that thought. I need to change it. Okay? So should statements. These are demands that we place on ourselves that are sometimes unrealistic, but also really set us up for failure. Okay? So when you say, I shouldn't eat that, what are you really saying to yourself? Or I should go to the gym. There's people typing so late. I'm sabotaging myself, right? Because then what happens if you don't go to the gym? Or what happens if you do eat the thing that you shouldn't eat? Yep, you're exactly right. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You're not doing the right thing. Okay? And then what does that lead to? Guilt. You guys are good. Yeah. I know what's good, but I'm doing bad. I'm bad. I'm being bad. I ate bad. Yeah. So you're exactly right. So the should statements really place a lot of pressure on us when there's enough pressure anyways. Okay. One of the things, and I may have a slide about this later, but I want to go ahead and say it because I don't want to forget because I think it's really important. It's almost the same to stinking thinking. Yes. So the thing about should statements is just like should and can't. Can't's another one. So if you're at a family event and you're like, I can't have that. Oftentimes, what are people going to say? One bite's not going to hurt you, or you can't be on a diet forever, or but I made this for you, you know. But if you shift that statement to I can't have that to I'm not going to eat that today. I'm choosing to eat chicken and green beans or whatever. Okay? That takes empowerment back on you, takes the guilt away most of the time. And really, what is someone going to say to that? It's your choice. They're not going to sit there and beg you to do it when you've made the choice. Like, hey, I want to eat chicken and green beans today. Right? Yes, it is hard to do, especially when they say they made it just for you. Yeah. So here's the thing about that. I hate to hurt feelings. That is really, really hard, especially if we're the type of person that likes to please other people. or if we're the type of person who, for whatever reason, really don't deal well with conflict, maybe. There's a bunch of different reasons why we cannot like to hurt feelings. And the whole idea is, can you all see me? The light just went off in here because I'm sitting too still, apparently. So hating to hurt feelings. So one of the things is, if we shift the statement, I'm choosing to eat this, they could still potentially say, but I made it for you. But number one, and this is extremely hard to hear sometimes, and I think it's really hard to believe, but it is not our job to manage anyone else's emotions. Okay? I'm going to repeat that because that's a biggie. It is not our job to manage anyone else's emotions. Okay? It is our job to manage our emotions. So that's when we can say something that is really, really kind. You want to, someone said something to me yesterday. I'm trying to remember the exact wording of it so I don't mess it up. But someone said something yesterday that was, we can be careful with someone's emotions, but we're not responsible for them. So it's not that we're going to be unkind or mean or anything like that, but it's not our job necessarily to make sure that they feel okay. That's their job. I can get on a soapbox talking about that. Okay, so personalizing. So when we take an example of something and personalize it, what does that mean? So just in general, what does it mean to personalize something? I'm going to turn the light back on 1 second. Okay. Now you can see me better. When someone's having a bad day, you assume it's your fault. That's a perfect example, right? So if you see somebody walking down the hall and you speak to them and they don't speak to you, oh my God, what did I do to them? How did I make them mad? Yes, you make it your own. I think this one can cause us to have a lot of negative thoughts about ourselves, reiterate self-esteem, and more often than not, it has absolutely nothing to do with us. But this is another unhelpful thinking pattern that can really get us stuck. Another one is mind reading. Any examples about mind reading? Yes, you're right. They probably are dealing with things unrelated to you. So mind reading. One of the things that I think is important to remember about mind reading is this is kind of where we're like jumping to conclusions, right? Exactly what it says, mind reading. We're assuming that someone else is going to feel a certain way, say a certain thing, react a different way. Exactly right, anticipating somebody's action. So when we mind read, we take the power away from them to establish their own reactions, right? Because we're putting it on them. And it's kind of wasted energy, right? If we assume that because you want to eat at home and not eat out for supper, and that your family is going to be upset with that. So you put that on them. You read their minds and know they're going to be upset, so I don't want to make them upset, right? Don't want to hurt their feelings. And you want to manage them, so then you make the choice to just pick something up for supper on the way home. Well, there's a good chance that maybe they wouldn't have been upset. And then even if they were, that's a different issue, right? We can still kind of work through that. But sometimes mind reading makes us think we're making choices when really the outcome is not even going to be what we think it may be. Okay? Labeling is the last one that I want to talk about today. And that is kind of an extreme all or nothing. So it takes the all or nothing thinking and kind of shifts it. So I didn't lose weight this week in clinic. I'm a loser and a failure. That's exactly what that is. That is when we label ourselves or even label other people based on a situation. Okay? Kind of like overgeneralization too, I guess. But it's being able to take that and saying, I failed that test, so I'm stupid. That's what labeling does. I'm overweight, so that means I'm lazy, okay? Or that means I'm always unhealthy, or I'm not attractive, right? These are those, the whole side is my life. Yes, it's exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting because when these unhelpful thinking patterns come in, it is a vicious, vicious cycle. So we've talked a lot about them. Now, what do? That's the next part, okay? I'm going to give you guys a solution. So I put some examples up here, and we've already talked about a lot of these. So number one, I'm never going to lose weight. So let's say, what's an example of a different way that we can say this to make it more positive? Number one is, I want you guys to think about, is one of these statements could be true. Hold on one second. Okay, so yeah, nothing changes if nothing's changed. You're 100% right. So I only lost 1 pound, blah, blah, blah. Well, that may be true that you lost 1 pound, but how are we going to shift it to be more helpful? And there's a couple typos. I apologize about that. It takes time and perseverance to lose weight. That's beautiful, Tony. That's beautiful. So I'm never going to lose weight. So maybe it's, maybe the trigger for that was you got on the scale in clinic and you didn't lose weight. It's been 5 days since your last appointment. It's not always about what the scale says. Yep. So you can say, the scale didn't reflect my effort this week. I logged my food, I exercised, I drank my water. I'm going to keep going, right? These are great, you guys. Okay, I must be lazy if I don't go to the gym. What's a way to make that positive? And maybe you didn't go to the gym, right? Maybe you had planned to go to the gym, anticipated going to the gym, but then you didn't. Does that mean you're lazy? No. Anybody have an example of how to reword that? Doesn't look like anybody's typing. Oh, yep, there we go. I didn't go to the gym, but I did walk a lot at home. Yeah. It could be, I had maybe you had a flat tire on the way home. I don't know. Sometimes there are circumstances that do get in the way, but you can say, okay, such and such happened today. I did not make it to the gym. I'll shift my schedule of the week and make sure I go tomorrow. Right? That sounds a lot better than I'm lazy because I didn't make it work out today. Right? Okay, Susie Q from group has lost weight. If I was just more like her. That can lead to lots of more negative thinking, impact your self-esteem, right? So it could be Susie Q looks like she's lost a lot of weight. I wonder what tips she has that can maybe help me, right? So maybe you haven't lost weight. So maybe thinking, like being like her is not necessarily going to work for you, but I wonder what she's doing that's really worked for her. Or it can be anything. It can be the scale hasn't caught up to my behaviors of what I'm doing. I haven't lost weight this week, but I've come to group, come to my appointment, worked out, and drank my water, right? Shifting that positive view to something else. I should be able to stay on plan every day. Here's that, how many letter word? That 6-letter word. So when you see that, I should be able to stay on plan every day. It can easily be. So let's say the truth is you didn't stay on plan. Okay? So the statement could be that makes it a lot more positive. Welcome to being human. Yeah, that's good. But, okay, so take that and say, I was off plan today. I will plan ahead for tomorrow. So maybe the thing was that you forgot your lunchbox or whatever. I was off plan today, but I can get right back on when I get home. That sounds very different than I should be able to stay on plan every day. Okay? The project at work failed all because of me. Probably not true. But even if you did make a mistake, right? Again, welcome to being human. So it could be that project at work didn't go like I planned, or like the group planned. I could do this different next time, right? And then I only lost 1 pound, and I only did 100 minutes of exercise, not 150. Take out only. I lost 1 pound and did 100 minutes of exercise. That sounds great, right? So a lot of times it's about expectations we place on ourselves that come from those unhelpful thinking patterns. Okay? So it takes practice, you guys. First, we have to identify the unhelpful thoughts, and that does take practice, like I said. And then we've got to figure out, okay, how can I reframe this? How can I look at this unhelpful thought? Sometimes they're not true, so we have to challenge that. But sometimes the facts at the end of the day are true, but we need to change the way that we word it, because unhelpful thinking can really impact our self-esteem, which impacts sometimes our ability to follow through with what we need to do for the program, right? Okay, so we can take those unhelpful thoughts, that inner critic we talked about, and reframe them just like we did. And to understand that we are more in control of our thoughts than we can even imagine. And I put down here, let's practice, but we already did that. Okay, so we already did all of these. I jumped ahead. Any other thoughts or questions about, or anything you're thinking of that you're having trouble shifting to more of a positive thought? Can anybody think of anything? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is positive affirmations. Does anybody use positive affirmations currently? Yes. Okay, good. So positive affirmations are, there's some not really. Okay, good. There's not a lot of people that do positive affirmations. That's funny. Say, I will start. No, but I will start. So you're already catching some of those unhelpful thinking patterns. Okay. How to do what they are. Basically, they are statements that are made that are to help stop that inner critic, right? So we want to shut the inner critic down and start talking to ourselves in a positive way. Personalize them with the word I, not the work, the word I. Use present tense, not future tense. Okay. Keep them positive, short and sweet. Repeat them daily, if not multiple times a day. So start typing some examples in of some positive affirmations. I'm going to tell you a quick story about my kiddo. My son's 6, and he started kindergarten last year. And we started on the way to school doing positive affirmations on the way to school. And when I first talked with him about it, he was not interested at all. So I spoke positive affirmations kind of over him and to him. And that lasted for a couple weeks. And then he said he wanted to repeat me. And so I started saying them, like, you are blank. And he would start saying, I am blank. And then he would end it with, today's going to be an awesome, spectacular day, is what he would say. Around November of last year, he started adding in his own. And one of the ones that I noticed he added in every single day was, I am positive. Okay? So he added it in. And in January, I think when we got that second report card, one of the handwritten notes from his kindergarten teacher was about his positive attitude with his friends and his homework or his classwork. And that was not in there before. Do I think it is all related to his positive affirmations? No. But I also think it's more than a coincidence, right? I'm going to scroll back up to these comments if I can. My 10-year-old daughter thinks I'm nuts when I do that. I can see that. I can definitely see that, especially at a 10-year-old. But what an example you're setting, right? What an example. Today is a new day. I like that one. However, I challenge you to make it personal. How could you make that personal? You've not done them with myself. Maybe start there. Maybe start with them for yourself. I do mine when I drop my son off. I'll do mine and then he'll do his. A lot of times he copies the things that I say, which is pretty, interesting, talking about learned behavior. Okay, so other examples of positive affirmations. Anybody else got some before I list them? I am happy. I am strong. A lot of times we want to say things about weight. If you're not at your goal weight, it doesn't make sense to say I'm at my goal weight, right? Because we want them to be truthful. So what can you say is, I'm making choices today to help me reach my goal. I am able to make a healthy on-plan choice. I am making on-plan choices. I will log my food today. Today I choose to exercise, right? It doesn't have to be just about your weight management plan. You can be thinking about all different areas. Think about, maybe look back at the self-esteem checkup, maybe where you struggled. Maybe you can't laugh at yourself. So maybe you're going to add a positive affirmation, and I can laugh at myself. I look in the mirror and I am beautiful, right? I'm strong. I'm confident. I'm capable. You are kind. You are beautiful. Yes, those are perfect. But do them for yourself. I am kind. I am beautiful. Say them over yourself. And I will put a caveat in here that for some people who have had a lifelong, very frequent relationship with unhelpful thoughts, this can seem overwhelming and can actually seem challenging, extremely challenging, and even can cause some unhelpful thinking. So if you are somebody that, when you think about doing this and saying, I am beautiful, I am capable, I'm confident, those things kind of make you feel shut down, I want you to start smaller, okay? So you can say things like, I am changing my thoughts to feel more confident, okay? You can take a step back. You can pull back a little bit because that's less pressure. So give it a go. Give it a whirl. Write down these things. Write down 10 and say them to yourself. Write them on the mirror. That's a great example. And if you find that you're having trouble with the positive affirmations, or for changing the thoughts like we did before, then talk to a behaviorist about it, because that we can kind of get into more detail and more individual about how we can help you with these two areas. Okay? And I'll go ahead and answer this just for time. How can these help with self-esteem? Well, as we begin to say them, we begin to feel them. And it can really be beneficial. Just perfect practice makes better, right? So the more that you put out there and have the thoughts in your head of, I am kind, I'm strong, I'm confident, I am healthy, I'm making good choices, or excuse me, not good, I'm making on-plan choices today. You're going to get more used to actually hearing those things, and you're going to shut down that inner critic. Okay? Every day is a new beginning. Take a deep breath, smile, and start again. Post it on the computer. Great. Post-it notes in the computer, the steering wheel, the mirror, all of those are wonderful, wonderful things. Okay? So if you are not doing positive affirmations, that's your homework for the week. Get some bright, maybe some bright sticky notes or something that stand out, and put something on there. And say it to yourself. Okay? Let's see. Okay. And then what I just mentioned, if after putting some of these tips into place, you find that your unhelpful thinking is still where your thoughts are tending to go, bring this up in your next behaviors visit. Be thinking of any questions you may have and typing those in, but real quick, make sure that when in the meeting that you log into the confidential survey and complete that. We do ask for your full name at that, because you're able to get rewarded with a Perka point that will be at the nutrition shop at either the Winston or Greensboro location. And also, we ask for feedback because we want to know kind of what your thoughts are. You're welcome, guys. If anybody has questions, I'll hang out a little bit longer and then we'll end the meeting. And I'll see you guys soon. Thank you. Okay. Bye, you guys.